Hello everybody and welcome back to Eddie versus the Algorithm, the series here on the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel where we're putting a man up against a machine for the duration of the 22-23 FPL season, and I am on the ropes here. The Algorithm is taking the lead in this series. We're going to get into how that has happened in the moment, but if you are new around here, make sure to, of course, subscribe to the series and subscribe to all the great content we have here on the Fantasy Football Fix YouTube channel. Leave a thumbs up at the end of the video if you did enjoy it and want to hop along with the series. To those of you rejoining and watching once again, thank you very much for your continued support. But let's get into things and kick things off with a little bit of a recap of how things got on in game week 33. I know we're having to cast our minds quite a long way back, admittedly, to game week 33 where that did occur, because I would do the game week 34 recap, but that game week hasn't finished yet. We couldn't do the game week 33 recap last week because that game week was still going on then. So you're getting the game week 33 recap now, unfortunately, and at the moment, the Algorithm scores 63 points in this game week. Casting a line back is hard to even remember. I mean, I can barely remember what I had for dinner yesterday, so remembering how these players got these hauls is also going to be a little bit of a struggle for me. But Harry Kane against Manchester United coming in with 11 points was definitely something I remember being influential in what is going to be the Algorithm's victory in this one. 63 points, pretty respectable total. Mings there down on the bench, 1-2 note, a pretty painful benching of 15 points for him. The Algorithm has liked Tyrone Mings for quite a lot of the season, so he's one of those picks that the Algorithm has definitely got right. Maybe some of you do own Mings as well, but on paper as a centre-back, maybe doesn't look the best option. Maybe other content creators aren't suggesting someone like a Tyrone Mings, maybe as much as even a teammate, Moreno. Even I was back Moreno over Tyrone Mings, but the Algorithm has definitely got that one right. And as mentioned, the Algorithm is taking the lead in this series. I scored 57 points in game week 33. It all came down to basically Isaac against Kane, and Isaac against Everton was benched, came off the bench for 1 point, got a magnificent kind of roll in a goal by getting all the way down that Everton back line. I think you saw it, him driving down the left-hand side. Didn't grab the assist for that one, so only came away with 1 point after being benched, so that was unfortunate. As going with Alex Moreno did actually pay off. Didn't outscore Mings, but I had him in the starting 11. I also benched 12 points from Marcus Rashford, so me and the Algorithm sharing a benching alike that was quite painful. And yeah, 57 points wasn't enough to beat the Algorithm's total score, making it 15-14 to the Algorithm. And now game week 34, we're going to, of course, have to add another point on for that, whether I'll be able to equalise and make it 15 all, or make it 16-14 to the Algorithm if they come out on top. Then we're going to have to see, I suppose. But yeah, for now, we're going to move into game week 35 and have a look at how things are lining up ahead of the next coming game week for all of us. Apologies if it gets a little bit confusing with all the overlapping game weeks. I can assure you it's almost as confusing for me as it probably is for all of you guys watching, but do bear with me. Thank you for sticking by. And we'll move into then having a look at how the Algorithm team is lining up. I don't think anyone will be using a free hit this week, but let's see what the Algorithm is predicting for the highest predicted point scoring team for game week 35. And we're back to normal looking formations this week. No more 5 at the back formations or 4-5-1s. It's a box standard 3-5-2 from the Algorithm. A very familiar FPL formation, probably for all of us. And let's see who's in goal then. Giving the Algorithm a total of 68 predicted points. First up in the team is going to be Martinez of Aston Villa, who have looked really good defensively as of late, you'd have to say. And although at the top end of the pitch they've looked brilliant, with Man United being the only first team to stop Unai Emery's Aston Villa scoring, they've also looked really strong defensively. We just talked about Tyrone Mings and Moreno keeping clean sheets and being big point scorers in game week 33. And let's not let game week 34 put us off that. They didn't have a double game week. They've got all these other teams that are doing really well, and we're talking about assets from them. But at the moment, Wolves don't look like the strongest attack in the league still. They have been scoring a few goals recently, but Aston Villa still look like a very, very solid defence. Martinez looks a very good goalkeeping option if he's going to play. So yeah, Wolves away is a very nice fixture for Villa, you'd have to say. So that's why he's coming in for the Algorithm team. And you'll be very pleased to know that maybe you're not, but Tyrone Mings has come into the Algorithm's back line. He makes it into the back three. Finally, the Algorithm has gone, no, you're not just bench worthy. We're going to start you in the 11. So Tyrone Mings comes in for a double up on the Aston Villa back line. Whether he can get another goal from a set piece, well, his underlying data does look pretty good in terms of those expected goals. He does tend tend to stay up for the second ball coming into the box as well. So Mings definitely an aerial threat in there, and when the ball comes down, he can hit it as well. So yeah, looks a really nice option, to be fair. I still think I'm going to die on the horse of Alex Moreno and say that I do prefer him to Tyrone Mings. But yeah, I know that could easily go against me once more, and the Tyrone Mings could come through with another 15-pointer, 3 bonus points, and yeah, put me in real trouble again in this series. Estepinian and Stones are the other 2 defenders. Estepinian I really like. Everton at home looks a nice fixture for Brighton, and John Stones, I think if he plays, is a magnificent option. That is just really the big if. We're coming into that point where Man City have the Champions League coming up. There's going to be heavy rotation. We saw Ederson fall to that in game week 34, which is going to be detrimental to my free hit team in 34 that you're going to see in the recap next game week. But John Stones could be one that falls victim. I'm sure he'll be wanting to start in the Champions League. I'm sure Pep will be wanting to start him. We've seen that Kyle Walker, despite Pep coming out previously and saying he can't play that kind of inverted wing-back role, has actually played in that position before. So I could definitely see John Stones being given a rest or just being subbed early. He has been subbed before the 60-minute mark before. Maybe that could happen again, which could be rather painful. But you would be hoping that City can keep a clean sheet against Leeds. Maybe Diaz is probably the safest option you can go for now, with the fact that Ederson has been benched in the next game week as well. So I suppose there aren't really any safe 100% Man City options you can go for. You kind of just have to take your luck of the draw if you're going with them, which is why perhaps having them as an actual transfer and having them in your team for weeks on end isn't the best. But the algorithm's gone with a 1-week punt of John Stones for the game against Leeds. In midfield then, we're going to see a very strong-looking midfield 5. Again, the problem comes in with the Man City rotation. Jack Grealish played 90 minutes in the second game of game week 34. Is he then going to start this game against Leeds? I'm not so confident. With Phil Foden back, with Mahrez there available, Alvarez as well can play off the wing. I think that Grealish could be in danger this weekend of being benched or a very, very early substitution, maybe even at half-time. So I'm not overall confident being an owner myself of Grealish, and for the algorithm, in the case of going for him, perhaps not the best option. But when he has been on the pitch, he's looked really good. Probably should have had more than the 1 return from an assist in the last 2 games. Owners were probably pretty unlucky to not get more in terms of a Grealish haul. But then we've gone with the 2 Brighton midfielders, and they're another team that have kind of noticed, this rotation recently, and Mitoma fell victim to that in the last game. Perhaps Solly March could fall victim to that tonight in the game against Manchester United, although you'd be hoping maybe Brighton will go full strength for that match. I think that whichever kind of triple up you go for Brighton, unless you maybe switch and go with more of a defensive assets, go with Steele maybe, or Dunk in centre-back, I think that you're going to have a little bit of fear with regards to March and Mitoma. Are they going to both play? I think Mitoma, probably the fact he's had a rest now, makes him more likely to. But I still think they're worth the gamble on. They're very cheap options, of course, so they always save the funds in these kind of teams and in your own teams to be able to afford these big players like Salah and like the front 2 that we're going to see. Speaking of Mo Salah, he scored another penalty in game week 34, so he got 2 in that game week. He's been doing pretty poorly recently, I'd say, outside of that. For Mo Salah levels, I think he was kind of a little bit more invisible, not actually getting as many big chances as we've seen him in the past, but he still came away with a big haul, with 3 bonus in the second game. I'm a little bit salty as a non-owner, I'd have to admit. Maybe you think I'm an idiot now for not owning Salah, but I don't think he was actually doing that well in game week 34, and if he wasn't on penalties, then I'm sure owners would have been very, very frustrated with the kind of points return he came away with. But that is Mo Salah. That is what he seems to be able to do, is just come through, grab those points returns. It's not that rare that he gets 1 goal and gets 3 bonus, but he managed to do it in this game, which is a positive sign for those owning him and the algorithms backing him for the home game against Brentford. And then finally, Marcus Rashford is the one going away at West Ham for Manchester United. I think you kind of just had to back Marcus. The form he's in at the moment perhaps hasn't looked quite his best since coming back from the injury. Bruno Fernandes is that little bit more expensive, of course, but Marcus Rashford, I think, will do pretty well in this game, and I'm hopeful of another return as he'll be in my team as well, that we'll see in a second. We've then got Haaland and Kane up front, which I don't really need to touch on. Both got pretty decent fixtures. Haaland, you kind of have to back him, even though there's a slight fear he'll be rotated. We might have early news before the deadline, which could, of course, affect your decision-making, maybe bringing in an Alvarez. But for now, on current information, him taking the captain's armband's a no-brainer, really, for the algorithm. Then on the bench, nothing really of note. Solanke, Konsa, and Pedro Porro is a bit of an interesting one, given how poor Spurs have been defensively. But yeah, that's going to round off the algorithm team, and we'll now have a check-in on my team. And I made these before I see the algorithm teams, and unfortunately, it's quite similar again. I actually have that wrong. That's my team. That's the correct team. We're going to go through this now and have a look at which players are different. I've actually gone with Robertson in the back line. I've gone with a Liverpool defensive asset. I couldn't actually quite stretch to afford Trent. I've then gone with Alex Moreno, as I kind of alluded to, and Neto in goal. Backed him against Chelsea. I just think, I know Chelsea scored against Arsenal, but I think they're in such poor goal-scoring form. I've taken an absolute punt on the goalkeeper in order to make my team a little bit different. We've then got Salah, March, Rashford and Matoma, so 4 of the same midfielders, and I just added in Ollie Watkins up front. I think he might do rather well in this game week. I kind of alluded to Villa being a little bit overlooked, I should say, since game week 34, due to the fact that, they didn't have this double game week. They haven't looked the most exciting. They had a tough game against Manchester United. And I think Watkins could come back to do rather well in this upcoming game. We can kind of continue that form where he was performing so strong in the last few game weeks that we've had, really. But yeah, that's going to wrap up Eddie versus the algorithm. Apologies for the little technical difficulty. I might have just cut that out of the video, so if you're wondering what the hell I'm talking about, then that's what's happened. But yeah, that's going to wrap up Eddie versus the algorithm for this one and my role in the content for this week. I hope you did enjoy. Leave a thumbs up if you did. But yeah, I wish you all the best of luck in game week 35. I'll see you all very soon. Goodbye.